What's up, everybody? More portal madness, more big SEC names looking to transfer. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. On today's show, we'll get you caught up on the latest of the transfer portal. We got all SEC teams named, first team, second team, third team, and we got some awards as well. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app. And create an account. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $20 off your first purchase if you've never used them before. That is the Game Time app. All right, let's dive into it with the latest happenings in the transfer portal. We'll run through as many SEC schools as we can with the latest buzz on where guys are going and guys coming and going in the transfer portal. So let's start over at Missouri, as some news made yesterday as their true freshman edge, Williams Nwaneri, entering the transfer portal. The 6'6", 265 edge will have all 4 years of eligibility. He was ranked as a 5-star recruit last year, the number 8 overall recruit in the country, according to 24/7 Sports. Recruiting Service tabbed him as the Tigers' third best all-time signing. Joined the Tigers from Lee's Summit North near Kansas City, but the true freshman only played a sparingly role as a rookie. Appeared in 4 games as a true freshman, meaning he preserved his red shirt, still have all of his years of eligibility remaining. And according to Pro Football Focus, he took 38 snaps this season, which ranked 6th among all defensive ends. He was credited with 1 sack and a hurry. Mizzou is expected to lose senior defensive ends Johnny Walker, Joe Moore. They could return Zion Young, Ja'Kai Lang, Jalen Brown, Eddie Kelly, Darius Smith, who again, a lot of guys there who have had great production and promising talent, but you would have thought, when you looked at what Dylan Stewart did over at South Carolina, had an immediate impact. We all just kind of assumed Williams Nwaneri would do the same thing. But I had some people tell me, getting hurt through the grapevine, maybe work ethic was a problem, maybe this and that. All I can tell you is, he redshirted, so that should tell you something. If he was doing everything he needed to do and was understood the defense and the assignments and all that, he would have played a lot more, right? But nonetheless, Williams Nwaneri entering the portal as a big-time talent. We'll see if anybody where he ends up at. I've heard some rumblings. Maybe Nebraska could look to nab him. Oklahoma, some folks at OU throwing it out there. But big-time, freakish talent out there available. Over at Mississippi State, some news came out last night. Their true freshman quarterback, Michael Van Buren, announced his plans to enter the transfer portal. I thought he was fantastic this year at Mississippi State as a true freshman. All things considered, look, there were a lot of things that went wrong at Mississippi State, but I thought he played pretty well and put up some nice numbers, albeit their defense was really bad. But he will be making the move. And why will he be making the move? Well, the news was announced yesterday that the Baylor transfer, Blake Shapen, who got hurt last season, announced he is returning for the 2025 season. So the former Baylor signal caller, Blake Shapen, who missed 8 games due to a season-ending shoulder injury, is back for Mississippi State. So Blake Shapen will return for one more run in Starkville. Michael Van Buren, their very productive freshman, will be moving on. Now, we did hear earlier this week that there was some thought maybe Jackson Arnold could have a reunion with Jeff Lebby in Starkville. That certainly could still be the case. Lebby could bring in Jackson Arnold to compete with Blake Shapen, but Michael Van Buren will not be part of that group. And color me shocked, because a few weeks ago, I said, look, at least Mississippi State's got that part figured out for next year, quarterback spot. But Michael Van Buren moving on, and very talented young quarterback. I think a lot of teams will be eyeing. All right, over at Oklahoma, we mentioned Jackson Arnold had entered the portal. More wide receivers entering the portal. Oklahoma wide receiver Jaleel Farouk, he entered the transfer portal, recorded almost 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns in his career. He will have 1 year of eligibility remaining. And Oklahoma wide receiver J.J. Hester, he entered the portal. The former Mizzou transfer recorded 553 yards and 3 touchdowns in his career. Now, this all comes after Nick Anderson entered the portal a few days ago. He was the dynamic freshman 2 years ago that missed this entire season with injury. So Jaleel Farouk, J.J. Hester, and Nick Anderson all into the portal at Oklahoma. Keep in mind, I mean, almost all these guys were hurt for a good portion of the year, if not all the year. I did see wide receiver Jaden Gibson tweeted out, always been the one me who stayed down. Some interpreting that as meaning he is staying at Oklahoma. So maybe some good news there for Oklahoma. I don't know who's throwing the football. Probably Michael Hawkins. And one other Oklahoma note here, linebacker Dason McCullough entering the transfer portal, 6'5", 235 pounds, has totaled 95 tackles, 5 sacks, 6 pass breakups, 13 tackles for a loss. There is 3 years there. He earned a freshman All-America honors, 1 year of eligibility left. Did begin his career at Indiana, where he earned all Big Ten honors there. So we'll see where the linebacker McCullough winds up over at Arkansas. Talk about some weird stuff happening at Arkansas. Their freshman running back Braylon Russell, who Sam Pittman was very complimentary of earlier this year, he entered the transfer portal yesterday. 300 yards, 2 touchdowns in his freshman season. Then later in the day yesterday, news came out that Braylon Russell has withdrawn from the transfer portal. So one that we'll keep an eye on, but like same day he went in the portal and then pulled his name out of the portal. Was it just he wanted an NIL deal? Was, there's been some of that here since this portal and NIL world has been a thing. So certainly, I guess, good news for Arkansas if they're able to keep the dynamic freshman and Braylon Russell. Other news, Arkansas tight end transfer Luke Haas. He is in the portal and reportedly going to take 3 visits to SEC schools this week, and that includes Alabama, LSU, and Ole Miss. So big-time tight end there that I know all of Alabama, LSU, and Ole Miss would love to have. Big-time tight end there from Arkansas. Arkansas defensive line transfer Nico DeVilliers, he has set to visit Texas A&M next week, in addition to a visit to Mississippi State. So he may stay in the conference. And then Arkansas offensive lineman Tykeus Crawford, he has entered the portal, 6'5", 325 pounds, made 4 starts for the Razorbacks this year. Former 4-star recruit, former guest of Locked On SEC. We had him on the show 2 seasons ago to talk about his excitement playing on the O-line there for Arkansas. So we wish Ty Crawford the best there. Over at Texas A&M, UAB transfer Jacob Zeno visited A&M yesterday, and later in the day, former UAB quarterback Jacob Zeno committed to Texas A&M. Zeno has thrown for almost 5,000 yards, 32 touchdowns in 6 seasons of football, has 1 year of eligibility remaining, and he's going to finish it with the Aggies. So the quarterback room with the Aggies, you get Marcel Reed, a nice young player, redshirt freshman this year, so he'd be a redshirt sophomore next year. The incumbent with Connor Wigman moving on, Jalen Henderson moving on through the portal. Now you bring up Jacob Zeno to back up Marcel Reed or compete with Marcel Reed for that starting job. Sure, Mike Elko may say, may the best man win. Over at Georgia, another one. Wide receiver Nitro Tuggle announced he was entering the transfer portal. Changed his mind yesterday. He is now staying in Athens. So, again, wasn't an NIL deal. He just wanted to be paid. In the portal one day, out the portal the next. So the freshman wide receiver Nitro Tuggle sticking around in Georgia. Also, defensive lineman Ja Jarrett entering the transfer portal at Georgia. 6'6", 338 pounds. Will have 3 years of eligibility remaining. Appeared in 11 games this season for the Bulldogs. Was a 4-star recruit in 2023. Over at Auburn, Oklahoma transfer quarterback Jackson Arnold set to visit Auburn later this week. It's a big-time visit. Again, we told you the other day, on 3, put in a prediction that Jackson Arnold was going to go to Mississippi State. But he apparently has not been settled on that. And with Blake Shapen there, again, we'll see what happens with Jackson Arnold. But he is going to visit Auburn later this week. Auburn really needs to refill that quarterback room. Hank Brown visited Iowa on Thursday. Just keep digs on Hank Brown. And Liberty transfer Caden Salter is planning a visit to multiple schools, and Auburn is one of the schools that has shown interest in him. So we'll see on that. Again, play for Hugh Freeze at Liberty. Auburn also going to host Western Kentucky defensive tackle Dallas Walker. So we'll keep an eye on that. Over at LSU, they lost tight end Kamarian Pimpton. He has signed his papers to enter the portal. 6'6", 245 tight end will have 2 years of eligibility remaining, ranked as a top 5 tight end in the 2023 class. An interesting one there because Mason Taylor is going pro as far as LSU tight ends go. So that's been their go-to target at tight end. They do have behind him Trades Green, who was a freshman this year, who looked pretty good, but if they losing Kamari and Pimpton, they don't have much depth there. I believe they brought in a freshman tight end in LaFleur, but remember they had a tight end on signing day flipped from LSU to South Carolina. Looking back on that now, they wish they'd have gotten him. LSU also expected to get a visit from Jacksonville safety Zechariah Poyser, I think is the kid's name, and then Pete Nakos over at On3 Sports predicting LSU potentially to land Kentucky wide receiver Barrion Brown. That would be a big one if LSU were able to get him. Track speed there. Also, Purdue defensive end Will Helt scheduled to visit LSU very soon. They're looking for some defensive end depth there for LSU. Over at Vandy, edge Darren Agu. He has officially entered the portal. Former 4-star recruit, 16 tackles and a sack this season. Over at Texas, defensive lineman Tiawali Savia entering the portal. Former 4-star recruit, played at Arizona and UCLA before coming to Texas. South Carolina, quarterback Robbie Ashford has re-entered the transfer portal. The former Oregon and Auburn quarterback was at South Carolina. He is on the move again, so he'll be at his 4th school with the next stop. Over at Alabama, 5-star freshman transfer Caleb Odom is reportedly going to visit Colorado this weekend. He was high school teammates with Colorado quarterback signee Julian Lewis, 6'5", 327 pounds, or 227 pounds rather. Alabama corner Jaleel Hurley is set to visit Mizzou and Michigan State this week. So keep an eye on Jaleel Hurley. Could go from Bama to Mizzou. Florida defensive lineman Kelby Collins officially entered the transfer portal on Tuesday, and he's a former in-state target for the previous Alabama staff and apparently has plans to visit the Crimson Tide. So that is certainly one to keep an eye on. Kelby Collins would make a lot of sense if he decided to go back to the state of Alabama. Over at Florida, edge Jack Pyburn plans to enter the NCAA transfer portal. He recorded 60 tackles and a sack this season. He will have 1 year of eligibility remaining. That is a nice player there at Florida. Hitting the portal. Over at Ole Miss, Nebraska transfer edge Prince Will Umanmielen telling telling On3 several schools standing out for him. Ole Miss, Auburn, LSU, and A&M among the schools. He's set to visit Ole Miss in a couple of days, and then A&M this weekend. So another Umanmielen could be playing there for Ole Miss. At Kentucky, D-line transfer Keyshawn Silver has set his official visit schedule. Florida among the 4 schools that he is set to visit in the SEC. So keep an eye on that. And then just some other names here to keep an eye on in the transfer portal. Former LSU and Georgia tight end, currently Nebraska tight end Eric Gilbert is back in the transfer portal. Duke quarterback Malik Murphy entering the transfer portal. Some have maybe connected him to Auburn. SMU quarterback Preston Stone entered the portal. I mentioned him because he's totaled over 4,000 passing yards and 41 touchdowns in his time in college. In 2023, he finished 13-3 as a starter, 1 year of eligibility remaining. So we'll be interested to see where Preston Stone lands. USC tight end Deuce Robinson planning to enter the portal. That was a 5-star recruit just in 2023. And then I think I saw Charlotte quarterback Deshaun Purdy is going to be visiting Florida. Florida looking for some depth behind DJ Lagway. So interesting moves there in the portal. CBS Sports, they put out some NIL rankings, fundings from their collectives, and thought this was kind of interesting. Texas was number 1 with $22.2 million. Ohio State number 2 at $20 million. LSU at third at 20 million. Georgia was fourth, 18 million. Texas A&M fifth, 17 million. Michigan was sixth, Bama seventh, Florida eighth, Clemson 9, Oklahoma 10. So a lot of SEC schools there, but it makes sense, right? I mean, I was actually surprised Ole Miss wasn't on this list, but Texas, LSU has a lot of money to spend. When they lost Bryce Underwood, the signee that flipped to Michigan, they reallocated those funds that they were going to pay him. They can now use that in the portal. So be interesting to see if they are a big-time player. Of course, A&M signed a top transfer class last year. Expect them to do it again this year. Bama looks like they'll be more of a player this year in the portal. Oklahoma as well. So will be fun to watch. All right, more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. But first, today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You can get ready to tackle all the postseason action over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app giving you everything you need to place your live bets all in one place. All you got to do, if you've never signed up with them before, go to FanDuel.com to join today. And how about some early bowl action? Florida, minus 12.5 against Tulane. They got a little vote of confidence as their head coach at Tulane announcing he is going to stick around. And Billy Napier getting the vote of confidence just a couple weeks ago. So Billy Napier, how things change. You go from, oh my God, they suck, they're not even going to become bowl eligible, to you make a bowl game and now you're almost a 2-touchdown favorite over Tulane at FanDuel. You can go check that out if you feel good about the Gators covering that line. You can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Also, today's episode brought to you by our friends at the Texas Bowl. And look, we've got some great college football news for you. This New Year's Eve at 2:30 Central, the Baylor Bears and the LSU Tigers will be battling it out on the gridiron of NRG Stadium for the 2024 Kinder's Texas Bowl. All tickets are on sale right now. Baylor University, Louisiana State University, New Year's Eve at NRG Stadium in Houston. What more could you ask for to close out an unforgettable year like 2024? So are you ready for football and fireworks? Head to kinderstexasbowl.com right now for tickets, suites, group opportunities, and more. Seriously, right now, these tickets are going fast. And if you're an LSU fan, you know, right up the road, 4 hours east of Baton Rouge is Houston, and you can get over there to the Texas Bowl. Do not miss this. Visit kinderstexasbowl.com. I run along here, Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to every Gators. Keep coming back and checking us out each and every day. Hey, 13 SEC schools placed a member on the 2024 All-SEC Coaches Football First Team as voted on by the league's head coaches. The first, second, and third teams were announced yesterday. Alabama and Ole Miss led the way with 4 representatives on the first team, while Georgia, Tennessee, and South Carolina had 3. All 16 SEC schools had at least one All-SEC selection, and 12 schools had 4 or more. 13 Georgia players, the most of any school, earned all SEC honors, followed by Ole Miss with 9, LSU and Texas with 7. So let's take a look at the list and just some notables here. We won't run through all of them, but your first team all SEC on offense. It was Jackson Dart at quarterback from Ole Miss, Dylan Sampson and Jarquez Hunter at running back, obviously the 2 leading rushers in the SEC. At wide receiver, how about the freshman Ryan Williams? Did you know he's only 17? He makes first team all SEC, as well as Luther Burden at Mizzou, who we know is already heading off to the NFL draft. At tight end, it was Eli Stowers. At Vanderbilt, he was such a dynamic tight end for Vanderbilt this year, so really nice honor there for him. On the offensive line, I mean, studs. Kelvin Banks at Texas, future top 10 pick. Will Campbell at LSU, future top 10 pick. Tyler Booker at Alabama, probably going to be up there. And Tate Ratledge at Georgia, just has tightrope surgery midseason and then comes back to be a force for the Georgia Bulldogs. So big-time players there. At center, it's Cooper Mays at Tennessee. We already told you Remington finalist there. And then your all-purpose, they put Dylan Sampson there as well on the offense. On the defensive side, I mean, stud. Kyle Kennard, Walter Nolan, Nick Scorton, James Pierce, Princely Amon Mielon. I mean, 5 studs right there on your D-line. And linebacker, It's Danny Stutzman at Oklahoma, Jahad Campbell at Alabama, Whit Weeks at LSU, all tackling machines. And then the secondary, you had Trey Amos from Ole Miss, Nick Nwaneri at South Carolina, Malachi Moore at Alabama, and Jahdae Barron at Texas. All really good players. Your kicker, Alex Rayner at Kentucky, Kai Kroger, your punter at South Carolina, your return specialist, Barrion Brown at Kentucky. And there you go. Your second team's just kind of highlighting just some of the big names. Quinn Ewers was the quarterback, Rocket Sanders and Le'Veon Moss, your running backs. And Gunnar Helm, Texas tight end, made second team honors. Other names that stand out, Texas linebacker Anthony Hill, Georgia linebacker Jalen Walker, Chris Paul at Ole Miss, Malachi Starks from Georgia in the secondary. And then your third team All-SEC, shout out Lenore Sellers, making it on the as the third team All-SEC quarterback from South Carolina. Trey Wisner, the Texas running back, and Trevor Etienne from Georgia making this list. Trey Campbell at Ole Miss, man, fell down this list a little bit, making third team. Mason Taylor, the LSU tight end. And on defense, you had Dalen Everett from Georgia, Billy Bowman, Oklahoma in the secondary, Jared Ivey, Centurion Perkins and J.J. Pegues, all from Ole Miss there on the D-line, along with Shamar Stewart and Deion Walker. So some nice honors there, some good dudes making that list, and congrats to all those guys getting some nice postseason honors. The SEC individual award winners coming out today, and the all-freshman team will be announced on Thursday, so it depends on when you're looking at that. But the list did include 16 student-athletes who made multiple appearances, and look, some of those names you know: Tyler Booker, Luther Burden, Barrion Brown, Will Campbell, Eli Cox. I mean, the list goes on and on, but congrats to all those guys. Tremendous postseason honors for what they were able to do in the conference this year. All right, still to come here on Locked On SEC. We got a little bit more of postseason awards and honors, and Brett McMurphy disgusted as a Heisman voter. We'll tell you why coming up here in just a second. More Locked On SEC coming your way right after this. But first, nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It is guaranteed perfection, and every single bite right now you can save on unforgivable gifts with a 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, score an extra $30 off with our promo code COLLEGE. 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites. From legendary steaks to mouthwatering desserts and more, save 50% off, 50, site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners, you're going to get an extra $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. I love Omaha Steaks. I know you will too, or whoever you're gifting them to this holiday season. omahasteaks.com. Use that promo code COLLEGE. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. It is award season, and did want to get to a little bit of conversation here. Brett McMurphy over at the Action Network. I like Brett a lot. I've had conversations with him over the years, some great interviews. And by the way, he's the one who broke that Bama missed the playoff on Sunday. He was the first one to tweet out, yeah, Bama's out, SMU's in. Just tweets that out before the ESPN selection show. He's an assassin. But Brett McMurphy tweeting this out last night. He said, look, I'm a Heisman voter, but I'm disgusted at the disrespect that Vols running back Dylan Sampson is getting. He shattered multiple records that have been in place for decades. Some of these guys had good seasons, Travis Hunter, Dylan Gabriel, but they did not have program record-shattering seasons that Dylan Sampson had. He said if Dylan Sampson had played at Georgia or Texas or Alabama, he would have definitely got an invite to New York. Disrespect is crazy. Go prove the nation wrong in a few weeks, young man. Hashtag Go Big Orange. A lot of people tweeting at him saying, you know, all the Vol fans are saying, oh, yeah, hell yeah, we're with you, Brett. Other people saying, you've lost your mind, old man. But, yeah, I mean, I brought this up yesterday. It's the first time in a while the SEC will not have a will not have a finalist. The first time, since 2017, will not have a Heisman finalist this year. No SEC players are finalists, but if any of them deserve to be on this list, Dylan Sampson certainly. I mean, the 22 rushing touchdowns, program record, like that deserves some love, but feels like he's not getting the love from the Heisman Trust. Nonetheless, I tweeted this out there. I mean, look, Travis Hunter is fantastic. The dual threat guy for Colorado did it. Wide receiver, did a corner. First time in forever that we've seen a guy play both ways and be elite at both sides. Pretty awesome. But to me, Ashton Jeanty at Boise, if you guys hadn't watched him, I mean, he was if they did not have Ashton Jeanty at Boise, they would not be in the playoff right now, hands down, period. So you could probably say the same thing about Tennessee and Dylan Sampson, although, look, we talked about it early in the season. Nico Iamaleava was getting a little bit of Heisman hype. And when he kind of came back down to earth and then the loss against Arkansas, it kind of went out the window as far as any Heisman conversation with Tennessee. But I'm kind of with Brett. I feel like Dylan Sampson did not get the amount of love nationally that he really deserves. And then he gets snubbed. You know, it was not a Doak Walker finalist, so not going to be a Heisman finalist. It just it stinks because it was a fantastic season, one of the best rushing seasons ever in the history of the Tennessee Vols. And that's saying a lot. They've had some stud running backs over the years. So congrats to Dylan Sampson, but unfortunately not getting all the postseason honors that he would like. Speaking of postseason honors, did want to give some love to South Carolina edge rusher Kyle Kennard. He earned the 2024 Bronko Nagurski Trophy as the nation's top defensive player from the Football Writers Association of America. Kennard was one of FBS's top sack leaders, was honored the other night in Charlotte at a gala banquet. So he was a finalist in a field that included Jahdae Barron from Texas, Abdul Carter from Penn State, and Mason Graham from Michigan. South Carolina's only previous Bronko Nagurski finalist, Jadeveon Clowney, back in 2012. So Kennard, 15.5 tackles for a loss, 11.5 sacks this season, top marks in the SEC, and the 11.5 sacks, sixth best in all of college football. So pretty cool stuff there. Congrats to Kyle Kennard, and we are hoping to have Kyle Kennard on the show later this week. The Lombardi Awards will be taking place, and we'll expect to get some interviews with 3 of their SEC finalists, hoping to, as long as they're all in town and get in town on time. Sometimes travel schedules mix up, but hoping to have on the show later this week. Will Campbell from LSU, Kyle Kennard from South Carolina, and Kelvin Banks from Texas. So hope, fingers crossed that happens. If not, we'll have one. We'll definitely have at least one of those guys on the show to join us. So make sure you tune in for that. All right. Before we call it a show, I did want to throw this out there. I saw some of the Vegas odds came out for the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 draft. And Shedeur Sanders is the odds-on favorite. Slightly behind him is Travis Hunter. So it's kind of interesting. Deion's 2-star players, his son Shedeur, the quarterback, and Travis Hunter, the likely probably going to win the Heisman Trophy. Both those guys, you know, the top 2 spots the odds makers have set for the number 1 spot in the draft. Cam Ward from Miami is 3rd. Jalen Milroe has currently the 4th best odds to go number 1 overall. Now it's 22-1, so it's, you know, really good value if you want to, you know, throw $100 on it or whatever. But not likely, right? But a little bit of a long shot. I just like that he's in the conversation. Jalen Milroe, 4th best odds. Is it one of those things that maybe they go to the combine and Milroe wows and Shedeur is off? It could happen. Certainly in the realm of possibility. The other ones here, Kelvin Banks, like we said, O-lineman from Texas. Will Campbell, O-lineman from LSU. They're both expected to probably be top 10 picks. This is one of those that, like, if a team were to trade up, and we'll see, the NFL season's not over yet. We'll see who ends up with the number 1 pick. But, you know, like, if the team that drafts number 1, let's just say it's Jacksonville, and let's say they feel good about, you know, Trevor Lawrence as their quarterback, you know, they could certainly go O-line. So let's take Kelvin Banks or Will Campbell to be our guy. Now I've seen some saying if it is Jacksonville, they'll take Travis Hunter. So we'll see on that. But the latest draft order as of this recording is the Las Vegas Raiders 1 and the New York Giants 2. So Giants need a quarterback. Vegas needs a quarterback. Make a lot of sense for Shedeur. But certainly, look, Jalen Milroe could go number 2 overall to the Giants. That would be interesting. But I just want to mention this one. The guy they had at the bottom of this list at 66-1. So they actually put him on the board at BetOnline. 66-1, Jackson Dart to be the number 1 pick. So will be fun to watch Jackson Dart's journey in the NFL draft and going to the combine and pro day and all that. Is he able to turn some heads and maybe jump up in this draft? That would be amazing for him. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out. We'll have you caught up with the latest news going on around in the transfer portal. We got news breaking every day. So make sure you keep it locked and come back right here. And hey, for your second listen, check out our buddy, Luke Robinson. Does a great job. Locked On Bama. Enjoyed watching his videos earlier this week on Bama getting the snub from the postseason. I'm Chris Gordy. It's been Locked On SEC. Come on back tomorrow. We'll talk to you guys then.